Okay, so I am making this video just in case if I don't see you in the next day or two. Um, I'm gonna basically share my story and basically tell you how I found God and also like how I found myself as well. I mean, whether I share this at the next like athletic department chapel or the chapel after that, like I just want to share it. I haven't really told it to a lot of people, um, but you know what? We grow, and I think it's finally time that I tell my story and give my testimony on finding God. So, I grew up in a household where church wasn't like a big thing for us. My parents never really went to church. A lot of it was because there was a lot of people that are like hiding behind God, behind their face, and are like, acting as moral Christians, and then outside of church and outside of it all, they're like horrible human beings. So, and you also have mega churches as well, so they never really believed in that. And then, but they weren't like atheists or anything like that. They did believe in God, and they did believe that there was a higher power out there. Um, so, but when I did go to church, I went to a preschool church. I went to church for a preschool, and I ended up growing up in the Catholic denomination. So my mom's side of the family was predominantly Irish Catholic, and my grandmother was a big Catholic, and she embedded that into me when she brought God into my life. And everything started out back in elementary school. That's when elementary school was when a lot of issues ramped up for me. So when I was 7 years old, I was diagnosed with high functioning autism. If you know the spectrum, there's two sides of it, and then obviously a middle, which varies. Obviously the low functioning side is the ones with your handicaps, and like the RISE students that we have here, can't really take care of themselves independently and always need aid and need assistance. And then you got the high functioning people, which are the ones that are on the spectrum, but they're somewhat normal, like me. We're basically normal, but we have certain behaviors and certain triggers that the low functioning people have, but we don't have all the severe handicaps. And one big thing about people with autism is they are huge targets for bullying. They're always targeted by bullies and targeted by people that want to pick on them. And throughout all of elementary school, I was severely bullied through it all. And it actually led me to start to hate school, because obviously school is supposed to be a safe place for students to go, and it allows you to make friends and stuff and just get away from the real world for 7-8 hours, however long you're in school. And it was a very unsafe place for me. I was the kid on the playground that everybody threw mulch at, everybody, kicked off the playground equipment, and it led me to have a lot of behavioral issues going into throughout elementary school, going into middle school. I was acting up behaviorally, having outbursts, just not behaving the way I wanted to. I think a lot of it was because when you get severely bullied and you have the neglect like that and have a broken childhood like that, it makes you act out with things. it's kind of like with like, you know, modern criminals that we see today, and like everything from, you know, a small robbery to a mass murder. Like everything that we see in them, a lot of it is because they grew up in broken homes. And I never grew up in a broken home, but I grew up in a broken childhood, basically. You know, I never really had a lot of friends going into middle school. And when I went into middle school, that's when a lot of issues ramped up as well. Like, obviously, I was seeing new things, making new things, but because of what happened in my past, I was trying so hard to be included with everything. So I started lying about my life. I started telling people that, you know, I was this and I was that, trying to be cool and trying to be in the popular crowd because, you know, I never had anywhere to be at in terms of like friend-wise, and I just felt alone and isolated, and that's when like I first started to get my first glimpse of depression. And then when I went into high school my freshman year, that's when I got introduced to the people that wear fake faces, people that try to boast a fake image, basically people that act like your friend but they're not truly. And so this happened like right at the end of elementary school, middle school, going into high school. So I did an Instagram live just to try to make a lot of friends back when social media was big for everybody. And I tried to make a lot of friends with it, try to gain popularity, and it blew up. I mean, I had like probably the entire school view it, but from then into my freshman year, there was a lot of people that mocked it. There were a lot of people that mocked me for it, a lot of people that just spewed hate on me for it. And then people started saying I was a lot of different things. They started saying I was a domestic terrorist, even though I wasn't. They started saying that I was contagious. A lot of people said I was a lot of different. A lot of people said that I was a horrible human being. In reality, is I wasn't. Like, I think what a lot of people don't really understand is when they get to know me more, is they understand that I'm basically just a guy that wants to just hang out and just relax and just, you know, spread love, not, you know, spew hate. Because I grew up with a lot of hate as well, and this happened during my sophomore year. So my sophomore year of high school, in February, I ended up losing my grandmother after a 7-year battle with Alzheimer's. And what that led to is it led to turmoil with my dad and his brother, one of my uncles. And one of my uncles, he was a very selfish human being, very stubborn, only cared about himself, and he didn't acknowledge me my entire life until I turned 21 and I started drinking, and I started, you know, when I started playing baseball in college, and that's when he acknowledged me. And then the hate between them grew more and more and more. And I just remember every single day from then until my other grandmother, who just recently passed away, we heard a lot of just hate back and forth to it, who's to blame. And then my junior year, COVID happened. That was a very trying time for me. And my junior year during COVID, that's when I had a lot of thinking happen. And then going into my senior year, that's when I developed a lot of jealousy towards a lot of my friends. I developed a lot of jealousy because I grew up in a very low-income household. My dad painted houses for a living, and my mom works in a bakery at a grocery store, and they never made a lot of money. And I never had a lot of money. I never wore the nicest clothes. I only have one pair of Jordan shoes. I never had any type of fancy shoes like that. I mean, my first car was literally a broken down pickup truck made in the 2000s, early 2000s. So I was very, very jealous with what a lot of my friends had because they had way more than me, and they also had futures planned out. A lot of them were stud athletes that were going to play their sport in college. A lot of them were going to college, and when I first went to college, I ended up going to a community college, and some plans fell through for me to get into it, and I ended up doing the entire 4.5 years online. And that summer after I graduated high school, before it happened, and when I got the news in late July, early August that I wasn't going up to the school, it really broke me, and that's when I fell into a deep state where I just did not care about myself or care about the world, and I started hating the world. I started hating everybody around me. I was committing petty crime. I was smoking weed to cope with all of the pain and all of the sorrow. I started underage drinking. I started driving recklessly, extremely recklessly. I basically told myself throughout this all, I basically said that I was either going to wind up in jail or wind up dead or killing somebody else because of my reckless behavior. I basically gave up on myself and gave up on life, and it led me to turn away from God a little bit and I was still reeling because it was 2 years after my grandmother passed away, and I was still reeling with the fact that, I was asking him, why are all these bad things happening to me? Why is it that I'm stuck in this life right now, and why can't I have a better life? And then I basically said, you know what, enough's enough. I'm going to continue to just live this life that I'm living right now, and whatever happens, I'll bear the consequences, whether I'm dead or I'm sitting in a prison cell. And in October of that year, I made a very dumb decision with one of my reckless driving habits. I decided to street race my friend when we were going back to his apartment at his college that he was going to, and I ended up losing control of the car, and I hit a telephone pole at about 90 miles an hour and flipped it about 4 times, and I actually walked away from that. I didn't have to go to the hospital or anything like that. I had nothing wrong with me. I walked away perfectly fine. And that was I never thought anything of it, but now I realize that was a sign from God that he wasn't done with me that night, and he was watching over me that night. And then turn around a month later, I got hit by a car in a parking lot at my work. And the same thing happened. I walked away perfectly fine. Only had a couple bruises and some scratches. I didn't have a busted skull or anything like that. So I was very, very fortunate to walk away from those 2 events. But I still did not really trust God. I was still, a lot of the stuff that I did, in terms of being recklessly and all of the illegal stuff that I did, it caught up to me, and I ended up paying the price for everything that I was doing, and starting in the winter of 2022, and it led me to just hate myself even more, and just basically ask God, why is this happening to me? And then December 8th and December 9th, 2022, that's when a lot of real question happened towards it as well. On December 9th, I found out that there was a shooting. There was an armed robbery and a shooting that happened in a dog park that was about 4 blocks from my house. And there was a person that was killed. There was the person that was shot was killed in there. And I came to find out later that night that the person that died in that armed robbery was my best friend. And the next 2 days, I was just broken down, just crying and just not knowing and just asking God, like, why did you take him away from me? Like, why did you take away 2 people that I love dearly from me? And all the horror, and why all these horrible things happening to me? And from then until just about now, I never really accepted God. I was still instigating fights. I was still trying to find ways to try to get popular. I was still lying about myself, and it led to a lot of different conflicts that happened down the road. And there was one summer, I was playing ball. I was playing baseball up in New York, and that summer I was instigating a lot of fights and trying to get, just acting differently, just trying to get attention and just not knowing like what it was that I wanted to do. And it led me to have serious tension. Obviously, I still bear the scars from being severely bullied in my childhood. So a lot of the jokes that were happening, I never really thought that they were jokes. I thought they were very serious, and I just thought that they were just targets towards me. And I just remember one night up there, I said enough was enough, and I basically wanted to commit suicide. I wanted to just take my life and just leave this world, like forcefully leave this world. And I still remember it because I remember that day I posted a propaganda on my social media, basically telling everybody that I was either going to do something heinous or I was going to commit harm to myself. And basically my plan was I was going to cut my throat. I was going to buy a knife, cut my throat. And I went to the store to get everything I needed. And I sat in the car for like a good 20 minutes, and the one thing that I felt there was a person like sitting right next to me in that car, and I turned to the passenger seat, and there was nobody there. And then I just felt some more, and there was nobody there, but it felt like somebody was there. And then I just remember getting a phone call from our team general manager, and she basically told me that I was going to be okay. And I basically cried that night. Over the phone, telling her everything and just letting it out, letting all the burdens out and everything like that. And it was the biggest relief that I could have ever asked for, because I never really branched out in terms of my problems. I always kept everything bottled in, and because of that, it led me to have it led me to be more anxious, more depressive, and more furious at myself, because there are times where I can be my own worst critic, and a lot of that came down to several different things, such as losing my grandmother, losing my best friend, all of the trauma and the turmoil from my childhood, like asking the question of what is really worth it? Am I good enough to be here? And after that phone call and I got off the phone, I just ended up hearing a voice in my head, and it basically said, surrender all your problems to me and everything will be okay. And I just kept hearing the voice again, and the voice just kept getting louder, and it kept saying, everything will be fine, you will be fine, you are worth it. And that was like a sign basically telling God telling me that everything was going to be okay and he was here for me. And I just remember I prayed that night, and I basically cried out to God, basically saying, I surrender all of my problems to you. I give everything up to you. I lay everything down at your feet. I need you more than ever. And it really opened my eyes, and I started searching for myself. And the beautiful thing about this semester was I was able to find myself through God. And I was able to make a life for myself. I made friends that I didn't even realize that I could make. I joined several Bible studies. I joined a worship team. I mean, I joined everything outside of it that contributed to giving back to God. And then it's allowed me to just be better and just grow mentally and grow spiritually as well. And I remember after my other grandmother passed away, I ended up getting her Bible that she had. And I remember when I opened up the Bible, because she had a lot of bookmarks in there and we were getting them all out, I remember there was a post-it note, and in that post-it note it had 5 different verses that orchestrated the meanings of life. And to this day I still read those verses. I still have that post-it note. And she had her favorite, one of her favorite books circled in there as well, which is the book of Proverbs, which, as you all know, is basically a book of lessons. And I still read that to this day. The biggest takeaways from my story and from me finding God is there are a lot more things out there that are worth it. Just because you think that you're not worth it, you are worth it in God's eyes. God has a bigger plan for everybody. He has a bigger plan for us. He wasn't done with me. Like I said, I should have died 3 years ago, and I didn't. And he actually pulled me out of where I was. And he put people into my life that I never really knew that I needed, and I needed. I never would have thought that I'd find another best friend here. And I found a guy that is literally like my big brother and always looks out for me, trains with me, and I'm very grateful for that. And it just shows that God loves you, and it shows that when you're going through hard times and you're going through the storms of life, always understand that God is with you. He's providing his healing hand. He can fix most things. He will tell you that you have hope. He'll talk to you. And when there's times where I'm at my lowest, I just turn to prayer and I look at the Bible and I just remind myself that, God is with me. And that's a beautiful thing about it. Biggest key takeaways is to always trust His plan, to always understand what He's doing in your life, always know that He's working in your life, working with you, working through you, and He's continuing to be the best to make you into the best version of yourself. And He calls you to do a lot of things too. A lot of it, I actually did not realize that I would have a growing passion to give back to the community. And from Halloween until now, I would literally just give back to campus. I'd buy like a bunch of candy and just put like candy bags on people's cars that I knew, and then some random people that I didn't know, and then I would put like a post-it note, and it would literally like have like either a Bible verse or like some words of encouragement. And that was something I do it because it gives people something that I never had, and that's what I really want to do into it. And as I continue to study and continue to pursue my future goal, which is being a youth crisis counselor, and also working with kids with autism, I'm continuing to understand that God has a really great plan for me, and He has a great plan for all of us. And if we continue to be fruitful, continue to bear fruit, be the fruit on the vine, be the water in the river, beautiful things will happen. And God always has our back.